Clough re-entered my life, and before the choices I made became glaring mistakes, there was a time when things seemed simpler, or at least I thought they were. My story doesn't start with Mercedes, or even with Uncle Harry. It begins long before that, in a time when I believed life was straightforward, predictable, and safe. I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone else's business. Summers were long and filled with endless bike rides, exploring the woods behind my house, and fishing at the old quarry with my best mate Brian. We were inseparable, dreaming up grand plans of adventure far beyond the borders of our sleepy town. I remember thinking we'd stay friends forever, that nothing could touch the bond we had. But life has a way of pulling people in different directions, and we soon found ourselves on diverging paths, me toward an apprenticeship in London, and Brian staying back, content with the familiar. Before I left for London, there was a girl, Shirley. Not the Shirley who would later become my wife, but a different Shirley, one from those teenage years, full of promise and naive hope. We weren't serious, just two kids fumbling through the motions of young love. But she was my first kiss, my first heartbreak when she moved away with her family. I think a part of me never forgot that feeling, that sting of losing someone before you even had the chance to really know them. It made me wary, cautious about getting too close to anyone else. Then came the summer before I turned 16, the summer that would unknowingly set everything in motion. My dad, ever the pragmatist, decided I needed to learn a trade. "It'll keep you grounded," he said, handing me off to Uncle Harry like I was some project needing fixing. I didn't argue. I was eager for something different, a chance to prove myself. But leaving home, leaving behind the comfort of familiarity, was harder than I expected. I didn't realize then that this decision would lead me down a path filled with unexpected twists, and a collision course with Mercedes Clough that would change everything. I should have anticipated the fallout. Looking back, the warning signs were glaring, like standing on train tracks and ignoring the sound of the engine barreling toward you. But I was too caught up in everything else, too fixated on her to see the danger ahead. My mind was clouded, my focus blurred, and when reality finally crashed in, it hit me like a freight train I never saw coming. Here's how it really went down. Back in school, Mercedes Clough and Portia Rowan were inseparable. Everyone called them the twins, though they weren't related. Same clothes, same hair, same everything. You couldn't tell them apart, and they liked it that way. They weren't stuck up, but dating them was complicated. They only did double dates. You wanted one, you had to find someone for the other. I liked them both, but I wasn't about to jump through hoops like the other guys. It seemed like a game to them. Meanwhile, I had my own path. At 16, my dad got me an apprenticeship with Uncle Harry, a builder in London. "Learn a trade, you'll always have work," he said. But it meant moving in with Uncle Harry and Aunt Mavis. London sounded exciting, but we were stuck in the suburbs, working nonstop. I had classes one day a week, but by the time I got home, I was too exhausted to care about city life. Uncle Harry worked me to the bone. Miss a class? Make it up on the weekend. Trips home became rare. By my third year, even my dog didn't recognize me, and a stranger was renting my old room. I had to crash with my little brother when I visited. When the apprenticeship ended, I was done. Uncle Harry wasn't thrilled, but I didn't care. I'd earned my freedom. Home didn't feel like home, but I'd saved enough to get a small flat back in my hometown. Finding a job was easy. I had the skills and landed a decent-paying gig with a local construction firm. Soon, I was part of a big housing project, and when that wrapped up, I joined a small crew converting an old barn. There were only 6 of us, and the owner was often on site. One day over tea, I pointed out how plain the front wall looked and sketched some ideas. Next thing I knew, I was in a meeting with the boss, the owner, and the architect. After some debate, my design made it into the final plans. When we finished, the architect told me, "You're in the wrong field. You've got a real eye for design." A few weeks later, I enrolled in a part-time architecture course. I kept working to pay the bills, but started leaning into design. That's when I saw her, Mercedes, in the college library. She smiled at me across the table, then walked over, flipped my book right side up, and said, "Easier to read that way, Roger." I stared at her, confused. "You don't remember me, do you?" she asked, arching an eyebrow. Mercedes. The name hit me like a faint echo. Mercedes? Clough? Wow, you've changed. A smirk tugged at the corner of her mouth. Should I take that as a compliment? For sure, I replied, still trying to reconcile the person in front of me with the memory in my head. But where's Tish? Mercedes' expression softened. She's in the States for an internship. We were both supposed to go, but my spot fell through. You two always together? I asked, remembering how inseparable they used to be. Usually, yeah, she said with a shrug. But this was too good to pass up. We talked until the librarian shushed us, then moved to the cafeteria. Before she left for class, I offered her a ride home that evening. I had my old van for side gigs and wondered what her parents would think when I pulled up outside their fancy place. We sat in the van for a while, reminiscing about school. Eventually, I asked if she wanted to go out the next night. Maybe I should have caught the hesitation in her voice. Looking back, I definitely should have. That sounds nice, Roger. I haven't been out much since Tish left. Friday night, I showed up at her place around 7:30. Her dad answered the door and looked me over like I didn't belong. When he saw my van, his expression said everything. Inside, her mom and younger sister were polite enough. I remembered Estelle from school. Pretty sure she used to give me flirty looks. Her dad clearly didn't like me, but I figured it was just protective dad stuff. But when Mercedes walked in, I was floored. I'd noticed how pretty she was the day before, but that night, she was stunning. It felt like seeing her for the first time. My heart definitely skipped a beat. We went to a pub with live music and a small dance floor. We danced a little, but mostly just talked. I don't even remember about what. It just felt easy. The only weird part was when she brought up Portia. She missed her, and I pretended to care, but I didn't. That should have been my first clue. One date turned into 2, then 3. By the end of the month, we were a couple. If we weren't working or in class, we were together. She'd wait by my van after evening classes, and we'd meet for lunch when we could. I was all in, and I thought she was too. After a few months, she stayed over at my place for the first time. She couldn't take the pill, so we used other protection, which kind of eliminated the mood. We didn't have full-on sex often, but we stayed close in other ways. I knew she was writing to Portia all the time, but I didn't realize how much it was affecting us. Over time, her attitude in bed changed. At first, she wasn't into mouth at all, but by February, she wanted to try it and got really good at it, fast. She used to hate when I went down on her, but suddenly she couldn't get enough. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now it's clear something was off. Not long after, Mercedes started talking about getting engaged. We joked about it before, but by midsummer, it got serious. I bought her a ring in July, and we planned to get married after her finals the next summer. Her mom was thrilled, but her dad wasn't. I overheard him more than once saying his daughter could do better than a builder. Estelle, her younger sister, didn't hold back. She straight up told me to leave Mercedes and marry her instead. In August, Portia came back from the States with her American boyfriend, George. I didn't like him from the start. He was loud, arrogant, and full of himself, the worst kind of stereotype. I've known plenty of great Americans, grew up around them because of a nearby airbase, even dated a girl from Chicago once. But there are bad apples everywhere, and George Greenlake was definitely one of them. George crashed at Portia's parents' place, but unlike in the States, they weren't letting him and Tish share a bed. I hadn't met them yet when I came home from work one night to find Dee in my kitchen. She'd had a key to my place for a while. 3 coffee cups were on the table, but I didn't think twice. I kissed her and said, "Let me change, then we'll grab dinner." "You can't go in there," she blurted. "Why not?" "Tish and George are in our bed." I froze. "No way," I snapped. I wasn't letting anyone, especially them, use my bed. Maybe it's from finding a stranger in my bed after living with Uncle Harry, but my bed is off limits. They must have heard me because a minute later, Tish and George strolled out half-dressed, muttering weak apologies. They didn't even bother making the bed. Dee swore they hadn't asked, and I believed her. By then, our relationship felt like it belonged to both of us, but Tish and George acted like they owned the place. While George was around, the 4 of us hung out occasionally. Tish usually borrowed her dad's car. My van only had 3 seats, and she wouldn't be caught dead in it. I refused to ride in her dad's car because George always had to drive. Dee always rode with me. I won't lie, it felt good when George pulled out of a pub one night and nearly drove into a bus. I laid on the horn, and the bus driver slammed the brakes just in time. George had been driving on the wrong side of the road. Rookie mistake, but still reckless. Turns out he wasn't insured and didn't even have an international license. The cops let him off with his U.S. license, but when Tish's dad showed up, I took Dee home. George flew back to the States the next weekend. September rolled in and suddenly my van was useful. Tish and Dee needed to haul their stuff to their university apartment, and Tish, who wouldn't ride in my van before, happily climbed in once it was full of her things. After wrecking her dad's Saab, she wasn't exactly his favorite kid, and he wasn't offering to drive her. After they left, I missed Dee like crazy. Not Tish, though, but I wasn't the only one missing her. During our relationship, I'd only been invited to Dee's house once when I asked her dad for permission to marry her. But the week after the girls left, Dee's mom invited me to Sunday lunch. I got along well with her and Estelle, Dee's younger sister, who still followed me around like a lovesick puppy. Even Dee's dad started calling me son and invited me to play golf. I wasn't into golf, but I figured I'd have to get used to it after we were married. But I had a feeling the invitations weren't just about family bonding. When Dee came home once a month, we spent most of our time at her parents' house, and when I visited on weekends, Tish was always around. She never stopped talking about George and her plans to marry him after graduation. She even tagged along when Dee visited my place, though she slept at her parents' house. Wherever Dee was, Tish wasn't far behind. By Christmas, the wedding planning was in full swing, mostly run by Dee's mom and Estelle. Dee and I just nodded along with their ideas. I didn't mind. Her dad was paying. I'd joke, "You sure about this, Frank?" He'd laugh and say, "Wait till it's your turn, son. My advice, only have boys." Frank was a decent guy. Estelle, though, she treated our wedding like it was a dress rehearsal for hers, with me. Everything was smooth until Easter, when Tish got dumped. George sent her a cold breakup letter. I always knew he was an idiot, but even I felt bad for her. It was brutal. A few weeks later, Dee wanted to postpone our wedding. Tish was supposed to get married before us, and now Dee wanted to push our date back because Tish was upset. The girls graduated and moved back home, and I helped them move with my van again. They both got jobs at different local banks. I was juggling college and work, even had a couple of guys working for me now and then. At first, I saw Dee almost every day, but soon she started going out with Tish more and more. One night a week turned into 3. She stopped meeting me after my night classes. I didn't suspect anything shady. Everyone in town knew Dee was my girl, and no one would mess with that. But the wedding kept getting pushed back. First, it was by a month, then after Christmas. Then Dee wanted to wait until Easter. I'd been patient. I knew Tish was her best friend. But it felt like we weren't getting married until Tish found someone new. Then, in December, everything came to a head. I went to pick Dee up around 7:30. She and Tish carpooled to work, but neither had come home. No call, nothing. I was annoyed and decided to find Dee's car. In a town our size, that wasn't hard. I spotted it parked outside a pub on the edge of town. When I walked in, there they were, Dee and Tish, sitting with some guy, laughing at everything he said. They didn't even notice me. I grabbed a drink and sat across the room, watching as their food arrived. Dee stuck to non-alcoholic drinks. Around 9, they finally got up to leave, still hanging on the guy's every word. SAS? Yeah, right. It looked like he couldn't handle a water pistol. They must have reached the car before Dee spotted my van parked right next to hers. She rushed back inside, scanning the room until she saw me chatting with a couple of friends. "Roger, how long have you been here?" she asked, her voice casual, though Tish and that clown, Rodney, trailed behind her like shadows. I looked up from my drink, calm but cold. "Since about 8. My fiancé bailed on me tonight, so I figured I'd grab a drink," she frowned. "Why didn't you come over? You must have seen us." "Oh, I saw you," I said, my tone sharpening. "But you didn't want me there, did you? If you did, you'd have called. What's the deal? That guy trying to rope you into a menage a trois?" Her eyes flashed with disbelief. "How can you say that? Rodney invited Tish out, and she didn't want to go alone." "So why no call?" I pressed. "Not to me, not even to your mom. I just forgot, that's all," she mumbled, looking away. I set my glass down and stood up, my voice dropping even colder. "Well, I forgot to tell you I was here." I stepped past her, the tension thick in the air. "Now go drive your friends home, and drop that idiot off first. I wouldn't trust him to hold a cup of coffee." Rodney bristled, his face flushing. "Who are you calling an idiot?" I shot him a hard stare. You slimy little punk." That's when things blew up. I let out my frustration, but he should have kept quiet. He'd been bragging all night about his fake SAS background, but once we stepped outside, he folded. Tried to slam the door on me, but it bounced back. Then he ran. "Did you have to do that?" "Tish liked him," Dee snapped. "I didn't do anything. He ran his mouth and chickened out. I just sat here, stood up by my fiancé. Good night." I finished my drink. Dee whispered something to Tish and they both left. The next night, everything came to a head. I didn't pick Dee up like I usually did. Instead, she let herself into my flat, her expression tight. "What's going on?" she demanded. "We had plans." I shrugged, deliberately casual. "Oh, I forgot." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't give me that. This is about last night, isn't it?" I shook my head, my voice firm. "No, it's about you, me, and Tish." She blinked, caught off guard. "What does Tish have to do with this?" "Everything," I snapped. "We'd be married by now if you weren't waiting for her to find a man." "I'm done waiting, Dee. The wedding's in February, or it's off. And from now on, you see Tish only twice a week, when I'm at college." Her jaw tightened. "You can't tell me who to see." "I can if I'm the guy you're marrying." I took a step closer, my voice dropping. "Think about it and give me your answer tomorrow. I'll be here till 9. "But Tish and I have concert tickets," she said, her voice rising. "She won't go alone." I stared at her, the decision already made in my mind. "Then I have my answer. If you're not here by 9, we're done." I paused, letting it sink in. "Keep the ring." She tried to argue, but I was over it. The next day, the phone rang nonstop. Dee's house, then Porticia's parents. I ignored them. By 9, I went to my friend Brian's place to watch my flat from a distance. Brian was like family after things went south with mine. After midnight, Dee pulled up with Tish and that guy from the pub. Dee went upstairs, lights flicked on and off, then she came back down. They talked, then Tish and the guy drove off. But Dee went back upstairs. Brian said I should talk to her, but I was done. At 1 a.m., Dee came back with Tish. She clearly needed backup. By morning, they were still there. I had one of my workers pick up my van from the flat. As soon as it started, the girls jumped in Dee's car and followed it, thinking I was inside. I slipped out in a car they didn't know about and drove to the house I'd bought for Dee. It was half finished, like us. Every time the wedding got delayed, I stopped working on it. I spent the day there and stayed the night. At college the next day, I saw them around campus, but they didn't see me. If Dee had been alone, maybe we'd have talked. But with Tish, no chance. That night, I called my flat. Brian answered, his voice casual as ever. "Tish left a while ago," he said. "Dee's alone." I hung up and dialed again. This time, Dee picked up. "Roger, where are you?" she asked, her voice hesitant. "Not your concern," I replied, flat and cold. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I couldn't let Tish go alone." I scoffed. "But she wasn't alone, was she? She had that guy. Or was he with you?" "He's Tish's boyfriend," she shot back. "And I'm your fiancé," I reminded her sharply. There was a pause, then her voice dropped. "You were? I didn't confirm the wedding because you were acting strange." "No," I snapped. "You were. I gave you a choice. Tish or me. You chose her. It's over. Engagement's off, wedding's off. Leave the flat tidy. I don't live there anymore." Her voice wavered. "Where are you living?" "In the house I bought for us." I let that sink in before adding, "But you chose not to live there. Goodbye, Dee." And I hung up. The next night, Dee's parents showed up. They already knew about the house. I'd told them. I always had a rocky relationship with her dad, so I figured it was smart. The house and car were supposed to be wedding surprises, and they'd kept quiet. To my surprise, they understood. They'd hoped our relationship would pull Dee away from Tish, but it didn't. They wished me well and promised not to tell Dee about the house or their visit. They made it clear they wouldn't pressure me to take her back. They knew Tish would always come first for Dee. For months, Dee tried to reach out, but Tish was always with her. I ignored them both. I heard Dee was telling people we were still engaged, but that ended fast. A girl I was dating overheard and called her out. That shut down the rumors. Life moved on. By the end of the year, I gave up on architecture. I told people it was because my construction business took off, which it did, but the real reason? I saw Dee's name on the roster for a course I needed. That was enough for me. I dropped out and focused on my company. Funny how things worked out. I started my business to balance work and school, but it exploded. I became one of the top builders in town. I didn't see much of Dee or Tish after that. Estelle popped up now and then, probably hoping to take Dee's place. I liked her, but only as a friend. I told her that from the start. She was sweet, but being with her would mean running into Dee constantly. I wasn't about to complicate my life. Eventually, Estelle drifted away, and I moved on. 2 years after Dee and I split, I reconnected with Shirley, an old friend from school. While Dee and Tish were in my brother's class, Shirley had been in mine. We'd always gotten along, and if I hadn't moved in with Uncle Harry, maybe we'd have ended up together sooner. Shirley was fun, a little wild, but that never bothered me. I just liked being around her. My feelings for Shirley weren't the same as they'd been for Dee. First loves are different, and Dee had been mine. But I grew to love Shirley quickly. 8 months after we started dating, we got married in a small ceremony at the local registry office. It wasn't the big wedding Dee's mom had once planned, but it was perfect for us. Not long after we got together, Shirley was diagnosed with cancer. It went into remission after chemo following the wedding, but it always lingered. For 5 years, I focused on Shirley and my business. Despite her health, she was full of life. She gave me 2 beautiful daughters, and we made the most of our time together. But in our 5th year, the cancer came back stronger. Chemo didn't help and only made her worse. She stopped treatment, choosing pain management instead. We had 3 more years before she passed. Our daughters handled it better than I did. Shirley had prepared them for that day from the start. They kept me grounded during the funeral, even organizing the wake while I drifted through in a daze. Shirley had raised them well. I'd done a lot of work at the church where we held the service, offering discounts because it was Shirley's church. I wasn't religious, but I wanted to honor her. After a tree fell, we rebuilt the boundary wall, opening new grave plots near the entrance. I reserved one for Shirley. I figured she'd like being close to the bustle. Whether I believed in an afterlife or not, it felt right. I assume I'll join her there one day, though I never told her that. At the wake, I was surprised to see Dee's dad, Frank, and Estelle. They offered condolences and mentioned Dee's mom was in the hospital. A few days later, I visited her in the same ward where Shirley had spent her last days. Back then, I'd been too focused on Shirley to notice much else. Thankfully, Dee's mom, Catherine, as she now insisted I call her, was recovering. I never found out what had been wrong. When I dated Dee, I'd called her mom Mrs. Clough, but now Catherine wanted to be on a first-name basis. She asked if I'd bring my daughters to visit when she was home. Apparently, she'd spoken with Shirley a lot during her final days. I never knew what they talked about, but Shirley clearly left a mark. The hospital had rules against young kids visiting unless they were direct relatives, so my girls couldn't see Catherine there, even though they'd visited their mom daily in the same ward. Once she was home, I brought them over. Dee wasn't living there anymore, so no awkward run-ins. Estelle became a regular at my house again, practically an honorary aunt to my girls. Eventually, her boyfriend Russell started coming around too. He was a great guy, eager to marry Estelle, but she kept stalling, much like Dee had with me. They both helped with the girls, and while I'd thought about hiring a nanny, I preferred having people I trusted around them. One day, Russell vented about Estelle's reluctance to commit. I decided to have a quiet word with her. "Estelle, think about what happened with me and Dee," I said. "Why risk losing a great guy?" She gave me a long look and said, "You really don't get it, do you?" I didn't know what she meant, but a couple of weeks later, Estelle finally set a wedding date. Russell, convinced I'd nudged her, asked me to be his best man. I agreed, though maybe I shouldn't have. I knew Dee would be at the wedding, but I wasn't going to let that bother me. The wedding day was a sunny June morning. Standing at the front of the church with Russell, I watched my daughters walk down the aisle as bridesmaids, led by Marion, another old school friend. I wondered if Estelle was trying to set me up with her. As Estelle reached the altar, she shot me a big smile before turning to Russell. Halfway through the ceremony, there was a commotion at the back. I cringed when I heard that loud American voice. Portia and George arrived late, stomping down the aisle. I tried not to look, but a quick glance confirmed it was them. Estelle muttered, "Crap," forgetting she was mic'd up. The whole church probably heard. I wondered why they'd even been invited. But things settled down, and the ceremony continued. As we left the church, Catherine leaned in and whispered, "We never thought they'd show up. We figured inviting them was safe since they live in America." Near the back of the church, I saw Dee sitting with a couple of other women. She looked miserable. Catherine seemed surprised too, pausing before giving Dee a polite nod. Dee didn't look at me, or maybe I was the one avoiding her. It was clear something had gone down in that family that I didn't know about. They hadn't mentioned Dee since we reconnected, and I thought they were sparing my feelings. But now it seemed like more was going on. Outside, we went through the usual photo routine. I noticed Dee wasn't in any of the shots. Estelle motioned for her to join, but Dee stayed back. Eventually, Estelle shot me a look and nodded toward Dee. I knew what she wanted. I slipped through the crowd and approached Dee from behind. Gently but firmly, I grabbed her arm and guided her toward the group. "Wipe that frown off your face and smile. It's your sister's wedding," I whispered. What do I have to smile about? Dee snapped. A hell of a lot more than my wife does. You were practically standing on her grave back there. It wasn't exactly true, but it worked. Dee's face softened. Oh my God, I'm sorry, Roger, she whispered. Don't be. Just remember, you're alive. That's enough reason to smile. An usher tossed me one of the small bouquets like my girls had. I handed it to Dee before heading back to my spot. She managed a weak smile, but she wasn't thrilled. After the photos, I helped get everyone into the limos for the reception. My girls ran up, demanding hugs, and I told them how amazing they were. As they climbed into their car, I noticed their bouquets were missing. Dee had disappeared into the crowd, which was a relief. I figured someone had found her a seat. Then Portia and George showed up, all smiles. I won't repeat what I said to them. I didn't care how they'd gotten back together. Before leaving the church, I stopped by Shirley's grave. There were 3 small bouquets beside the large one I'd brought. I had a quiet word with her like always. Funny, isn't it? I don't believe in the afterlife, but I still talk to her like she's listening. At the reception, it was clear Dee hadn't been expected. As soon as Catherine finished greeting guests, she scrambled to rearrange the seating to squeeze Dee in. I helped, but didn't ask questions. After the meal and speeches, I thought I could relax. But I wasn't ready for what Russell had to say. During his speech, he announced that Estelle had a crush on me for years, and thanked me for convincing her to marry him instead. The crowd laughed, but I felt more awkward than amused. When it was my turn, I kept it simple. I've only known this guy a few months, I began, but my daughters assure me he's good enough for Estelle. That got a big laugh, and my girls beamed from their seats. They adored Russell and Estelle, and that meant everything to me. When the dancing kicked off, Estelle and Russell had the first go, followed by their parents. Then it was my turn with the bridesmaids. Marian, the maid of honor, was great with my daughters. We scooped them up and spun around, their laughter filling the room. Estelle and Russell joined in, and it turned into a chaotic, joyful waltz. I noticed Dee sitting with some churchwomen, far from her family. Later, Estelle pulled me onto the dance floor. As we swayed, I asked quietly, "What's the deal with Dee?" "Not here," she whispered. "Meet me in the foyer in 10. After our dance, I watched Estelle lean in to whisper something to Russell before slipping out of the room. Curiosity got the better of me, and I followed. I found her waiting just outside, arms crossed against the cool night air. "When you and Dee broke up, Mom and Dad were furious with her," Estelle said quietly. "They always hated how much influence Portia had over her." I raised an eyebrow. "They thought something was going on between them?" "Not like that," she replied quickly. "They just hated the hold Tish had. When you came along, they were thrilled." I snorted. Frank never seemed thrilled. Estelle smirked, the corners of her mouth curling. "Dad thought you were perfect for Dee. Playing tough was his way of not scaring you off. Who do you think told everyone you were the best builder in town?" She paused, her expression softening. "He still does." I chuckled, shaking my head, but Estelle's face grew serious again. "When Dee kept postponing the wedding, we warned her she was pushing you away," she said. "She didn't listen, and when you left, she blamed herself and Tish." I frowned. "So why invite Portia today?" Estelle let out a sigh. "Her dad's a business partner. We didn't think she and George would actually show." I hesitated, then asked the question lingering in the back of my mind. "What happened with Dee?" Estelle hesitated, her eyes darting away before she finally spoke. "After you married Shirley, George proposed to Tish, and they moved to the States. That's when Dee realized Tish had been using her all along, and she was left behind." I felt old frustration bubbling up, tightening in my chest. Estelle's voice softened. "Dee had a breakdown." I froze. "I had no idea. She lost you, then Tish left, and when you married Shirley..." Estelle trailed off, her voice dropping to a whisper. "It broke her. Tish had convinced Dee you'd come back when she was ready, but you moved on." I rubbed my temples, trying to process it all. Estelle's next words hit me like a punch. "She even blamed us when Samantha died." "Samantha," I repeated, my voice hollow. "Samantha was Dee's twin," Estelle said quietly. "She died of meningitis when they were 8. Dee was wrecked. Meeting Tish felt like getting her sister back." She paused, her expression tightening. "But Tish just used her." I sat there, stunned, the weight of it all settling over me. "After Tish left, Dad got Dee into a clinic," Estelle continued. "She improved, but she felt too guilty to face us. She moved to London to avoid running into you, or Shirley." I exhaled deeply. "I'm sorry, Roger," Estelle said. "That's why we lost touch. If we didn't know how you were doing, we couldn't slip up and mention you to Dee. I nodded slowly. When Mom met Shirley in the hospital, Estelle continued, they became close. Shirley asked her to look after you and the girls. I swallowed hard. So why was your mom surprised to see Dee today? Estelle smiled faintly. Some friends convinced Dee to come to my bachelorette party. She seemed fine until someone mentioned you were Russell's best man. She freaked out and said she wouldn't come. We didn't think she'd show. She paused, her expression shifting from reflective to determined. Then she said quietly, now I need a favor. I chuckled, raising an eyebrow. On your wedding day, of course. Estelle leaned in slightly. I want you to dance with Dee. I blinked, caught off guard. Seriously? She won't sit with us because you're here, Estelle explained, but she won't say no to you. That's why I asked you to pull her into the photos earlier. I let out a slow breath. You know I'd do anything for you, but what if she refuses? She won't, Estelle said with a small, confident smile. When we go back in, Russell will ask her to dance, and you'll dance with me. We'll accidentally bump into them and swap partners. By the time she realizes, it'll be too late. Once you've got her dancing, she won't walk away. And when the song ends, lead her over to Mom and Dad. She won't leave after that. I sighed, rubbing the back of my neck. You sure this will work? Estelle's confident facade softened. Honestly, no, but Dee needs to know we don't hold a grudge, and I hope you don't either. I sighed dramatically. All right, lead me to the wolves. Estelle grinned. And by the way, Mom's stopping by tomorrow. She's got something for you. I'll be home, I said. The girls will probably keep me up all night anyway. Estelle took my arm, and we headed back inside. The band started a waltz, and we joined the dancers. I saw Russell guide Dee toward us. With a gentle bump and a smooth switch, Dee suddenly found herself in my arms. She stiffened when she realized it was me. Relax, Dee, I murmured. You know how to dance. For a second I thought she'd bolt, but she softened, leaning in just enough to stay upright. By the end of the song, I was practically holding her up. I led her to the chair next to her mother, half carrying her. Frank sat on her other side. I returned to my daughters, who immediately asked where I'd been. The music was loud, so I couldn't hear what Dee and her parents were saying, but it was good to see them talking. Around 11, I took my girls home. It was well past bedtime. As we said our goodbyes, Estelle and Catherine kissed the girls, and even Dee got a hug, though I doubt they knew who she was. That night dragged on. The girls were wiped out, but too excited to sleep. By morning, they were up before me, begging to swim. They were good kids and wouldn't go near the water without me. Shirley had drilled that into them. Around noon, Catherine and Frank arrived. We got out of the pool to greet them. It was surprising how quickly my daughters bonded with them. My own parents barely noticed my kids, favoring my brothers, and Shirley's parents never connected with them the way the Cloughs had. Once we settled in with cold drinks, Catherine asked to talk privately. Frank will watch the girls, she said. Frank was already in the pool with them, wearing a swimsuit under his clothes like he'd planned it. I led Catherine into the living room where we could still see the kids. She pulled an envelope from her bag. Shirley asked me to give this to you 6 months after she passed. She wrote most of it herself, but near the end, when it got tough, she dictated some to me. I took the envelope, feeling its weight like it carried more than just paper. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. I'll be outside if you need me, Catherine said softly. I nodded, unable to speak, and unfolded the letter. Some parts were written in Shirley's shaky handwriting, others in Catherine's neat script.
Hey, love. How are you and the girls holding up without me? By now, it's been 6 months. That's how long I asked Kathy to hold this. This isn't easy to write. I don't know the right words. I feel guilty, not just for leaving you, but for marrying you and pulling you into my mess. We'd only been dating a few weeks when the doctor gave me the news. I wasn't sure if I should tell you. I was scared you'd stay out of obligation, but I loved you, and I knew you loved me for me. When you encouraged me to have the girls, knowing you might raise them alone, I realized it wasn't pity. It was real love. I'm sorry I can't repay you for all the love you've given me. Roger, I've loved you more than anyone. I know you don't believe in an afterlife, but I hope you're wrong and we meet again. Now I need a favor. I want you to find another mother for our girls. They'll need one, and you'll need a partner. After meeting Catherine, I think I know who that might be. And I think you know too. Catherine told me about Mercedes and what happened between you two. From what she shared, I'm sure Dee loved you and still does. But she was under that awful girl's influence. I know it's strange to say, but in a way, That worked out for me, even though it hurt you. Life's funny like that. Please think about reconnecting with Dee. Show her the love you gave me, and maybe she'll love you and the girls as much as I do. I believe she already does.
At that point, Catherine's handwriting took over.
Catherine and Frank became close friends during my hospital stays. Estelle visited too, and she loves you as well. You've touched so many lives, Roger. You're lucky. Catherine promised to look after you and the girls. They don't have grandkids of their own, and they want to treat ours like theirs. Please let them. If things work out the way I hope, Catherine and Frank will be the girls' real grandparents. Thank you, Roger, for loving me. And if I can, I'll always watch over you and the girls. Goodbye, my love, until we meet again. Shirley, with 8 kisses beneath it, one for every year we had together.
I don't know how long I sat there crying before Catherine came back with a cup of tea. She must have been watching from outside. I realized suddenly I couldn't hear the girls playing. Panic kicked in. "It's okay," Catherine said gently. "Frank took them for ice cream. It's warm enough for swimsuits." "Thanks, Catherine," I croaked, my voice raw. "You know what's in this letter, don't you?" She nodded. "But you don't have to do what Shirley suggested. That's between you and her. My lips are sealed." "Appreciate that," I said, hesitating. "But what do you think?" She paused. "I'm trying not to sway you, Roger, but I think it's fair to give Dee another chance. See who she is now before making any decisions." I sighed. Dee might not even want me anymore. It's been years. Catherine smiled softly. "Yesterday, Dee said your girls were lovely, and that she wished they were hers." I must have looked confused because Catherine gently added, "She said she wished she'd married you when she had the chance. Seeing you breaks her heart." "Oh," I whispered, the weight of her words sinking in. "I still have feelings for her. Leaving Dee was the hardest thing I've ever done. I had to make myself angry, had to convince myself I hated her. I'm not sure I can let that go." Catherine's eyes softened. "Will you try?" "Of course," I murmured. "It was Shirley's last wish. I can't ignore that. But I need to reconnect with Dee socially first, see how she feels about the girls and how they feel about her, before I even think about a relationship." "You're smart, Roger," Catherine said with a nod. "The girls come first. We'll find a way to get them and Dee together, see what happens." "Yeah," I agreed, my voice low. "If they feel like someone's trying to replace Shirley, it'll be a disaster, and I won't toy with Dee's feelings just to walk away again. After what Estelle told me about Portia, I couldn't do that to her." Catherine leaned in and kissed my forehead. "Shirley was right. You're the most thoughtful man she ever knew." I flushed with embarrassment and quickly changed the subject. "So, how do we get Dee and the girls together?" "They were talking about how much they missed your pool parties," Catherine suggested. "Why not throw one in a couple of weeks? Dee's coming down for a family gathering when Estelle and Russell get back from their honeymoon. If you host, Frank and I can help with food. Dee won't know where she's going until we bring her here. Once she's here, I doubt she'll leave, even if she's embarrassed. You'll be busy with guests, and Estelle can get her involved with the kids." "Sounds like a plan," I admitted. "The girls have mentioned missing the pool parties, but without Shirley—" My voice trailed off. "She was the heart of every party." "Shirley would have loved this idea," Catherine said softly. "Remember, she wanted you to find another mother for the girls." 2 weeks later, on an early Saturday morning, far too early for my liking, I woke to the sound of my daughters chatting excitedly downstairs. Still groggy, I dragged myself out of bed and found Estelle and Russell unloading their car, bringing in all sorts of supplies for the pool party. That's when it hit me just how much work Shirley had put into organizing these events. Estelle and Russell had thought of everything, even stuff I'd completely overlooked, though I'd never needed to think about it before. Later on, Estelle mentioned that the girls had handed Catherine a list of things I'd forgotten when she visited the night before. When I asked why they didn't just tell me directly, they shrugged and said, "You were busy, Daddy. The lawn had to be mowed before everyone arrived. Just do as you're told and don't ask questions." I couldn't help but chuckle. Shirley had trained them well, and clearly me too. By early afternoon, friends, neighbors, and my work crew started showing up with their families. Catherine and Frank arrived around 1:30, bringing along a quiet, slightly anxious Dee. She looked a little awkward when our eyes first met, but before long she was laughing and splashing around in the pool with Estelle and the kids. I noticed her swimsuit looked familiar, probably one of Estelle's. Most of my day was spent mingling, catching up with friends, and chatting with Russell. He shared every detail of their honeymoon, leaving out just enough for me to fill in the blanks and assume they barely left the bedroom for the first few days. By 9 that evening, it was time to settle the kids down for bed. Russell gave me a nudge as Dee and Estelle took the girls upstairs. About 30 minutes later, once they came back down, I went up to tuck the girls in and say goodnight. As soon as I walked into their room, my oldest daughter asked, "Daddy, is that really her?" "Who?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Dee," she whispered. "Is she going to be our new mom?" I sat down on the edge of the bed, looking at them both. "Where'd you get the idea that there's going to be a new mom?" "Don't be silly, Daddy," my youngest piped up, her voice matter of fact. "Mommy told us a long time ago you'd find another mom for us." "Oh, she did, huh?" I raised an eyebrow. "And what else did Mommy tell you that she didn't tell me?" "She said Estelle's sister would probably be our new mom," my oldest said, nodding seriously. "And we're supposed to help you catch her." I chuckled, shaking my head. "Catch her? What do you mean by that?" "Mommy said Dee got away the first time," she explained, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "But if you got close to her again, we should help you catch her." I shook my head, grinning to myself. "Shirley, you've really set me up for this, haven't you?" "Sorry, Daddy," my youngest said, frowning. "I didn't hear what you said." "Oh, nothing, girls," I replied, leaning down to kiss them both on the forehead. "Just talking to Mommy. Now, give me a kiss goodnight, and we'll chat more about this tomorrow." As they snuggled under the covers, my oldest peeked up at me. "Is Dee coming over again? We like her." I hesitated, then smiled. "I'm not sure, sweetheart. Maybe." "Well," she continued thoughtfully, "if she doesn't come over, can we visit her?" At that moment, I realized I didn't stand a chance. "All right, girls," I said with a soft laugh. "If Dee doesn't visit, we'll go see her. But now it's time to get some sleep." "Good night, Daddy," they said in unison, and I could hear them giggling as I closed the door behind me. I sat on the top step for a while, listening to the faint sounds of laughter and conversation drifting in from outside. The splashing from the pool had quieted down, and someone was tidying up in the kitchen. I needed a minute to process what my daughters had just said. "What am I doing?" I thought. Since Shirley passed, I'd been going through the motions, just keeping things afloat. But now, everything felt different. The girls clearly liked Dee. I remembered the way their faces lit up when they first saw her at Estelle's wedding, something I hadn't seen since Shirley was alive. But how did I feel about Dee? That was the question. I sighed. I loved her. I pushed Dee away years ago because I didn't want to compete with Tish for her attention. But Tish was out of the picture now. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about my girls, and I could see sharing them with Dee. Wait, how did I even get to that thought? Had I ever given Shirley all of my heart? Did she know part of me still belonged to Dee? I thought about something Shirley used to say. "Half of you is enough for me, Roger." Damn, I thought, she really did know me better than I knew myself. Back outside, most of the guests had gathered around the patio. Russell was refilling drinks, Frank was scrubbing down the grill, and the kids were winding down after a long day in the pool. As I approached, Catherine met me halfway. "Mercedes and Estelle are in the kitchen finishing up the dishes," she whispered. "Now's your chance to talk to her. Estelle will give you two some space." I raised an eyebrow. "Between you, my girls, and Shirley's plan from the grave, it feels like everyone's trying to get me hitched to Dee again." Catherine chuckled. "Roger, I promise we haven't said a word to Mercedes about getting back together, but the girls were asking her some interesting questions earlier." "Yeah, I noticed," I said, shaking my head. "I think Shirley had this whole thing mapped out long before she passed. I just wish she'd clued me in." I paused for a moment. "Tell me something, Catherine. How long did you know Shirley? You didn't just meet her at the hospital, did you?" "Well, no," Catherine admitted. "We met at a cancer support group. You didn't know?" I shook my head. Shirley never mentioned it. "She asked me about you and Mercedes once she realized who I was. I told her the truth as I saw it, but she said if you two got back together, she'd never worry about you or the girls." Damn, I thought. Shirley really did know me better than I knew myself. Catherine smiled gently. "Women's intuition, Roger. You picked a wonderful wife in Shirley. But now, maybe it's time you talk to Mercedes." I stepped into the kitchen, finding Dee washing dishes while Estelle dried them. Without saying a word, I took the towel from Estelle, and she quietly slipped out, leaving us alone. Dee didn't even notice I was there at first, focused on rinsing and stacking the dishes. After a minute, she froze mid-motion. She must have caught sight of me out of the corner of her eye because she turned and stared. "It's been a while since we've done this, Dee," I said softly. She blinked, stunned. For a moment, it looked like she couldn't find the words. I placed a plate on the rack and reached for the next one. Without thinking, she handed me a dirty dish. Shouldn't this go in the water first?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Oh!" She blinked, realizing what she'd done. "I wasn't thinking." She pulled the plate back, her cheeks flushing as she started scrubbing again. "I'd say you were thinking," I teased, giving her a sidelong glance. "Just not about dishes. What's on your mind, Dee?" She hesitated, her hands pausing in the suds. Then, almost in a whisper, she said, "Do you really want to know?" I set down the dish and met her eyes. I wouldn't ask if I didn't. She took a breath, then murmured, "I was thinking about how stupid I was." My brow furrowed. "Why's that?" She kept her gaze on the sink, her voice barely above a whisper. "I had the chance to spend my life with you, and I threw it away." "Maybe it wasn't your fault," I said gently. "Shirley always believed things happened for a reason. Maybe there were things we needed to figure out before we found our way back to each other." She raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Well, there are 2 little girls upstairs who need a mom. And from what they're saying, they think you're the one." Dee's eyes widened, and I couldn't help but grin. "They've still got their bridesmaid dresses from Estelle's wedding," I added. "And now they're hoping to wear them again. For your wedding." Her jaw dropped. "Roger, are you asking me to marry you?" "Nope," I said with a smirk. "I asked you that years ago. I'm just waiting for you to set the date." That was definitely the wrong thing to say. Dee dropped the plate she was washing and nearly fainted. I dropped the dish I was drying and lunged to catch her as both plates shattered on the floor. The crash brought Catherine and Estelle running, with my daughters hot on their heels. Frank burst in from the patio, looking ready to jump into action. What did they find? Me holding Dee in my arms, surrounded by broken dishes. Catherine and Estelle were both in tears, their emotions spilling over. My girls, on the other hand, were grinning from ear to ear, not quite understanding why everyone else was crying. Especially when Dee and I started tearing up too. "I thought you 2 were in bed," I managed to say, wiping at my face, trying to regain my composure. "Come on, I'll take you back up," I added, stepping toward them. But Dee gently pulled away, her hand resting lightly on my arm. "No, Roger," she said softly. "I'll do it. I need to get used to looking after them." She turned to the girls, her smile warm and steady as she reached for their hands. "Come on, girls. We've got lots to talk about." Thanks to Catherine's handiwork, a month later, it was our wedding day. Russell and I got to the church early, but before we went inside, I asked for a minute alone. I wandered over to Shirley's grave. "Well, you really set me up for this, didn't you?" I murmured, shoving my hands in my pockets. "But this was your plan, so don't go blaming me. I think you were right, though. Dee's going to be an incredible mom to the girls." I let out a soft chuckle. "You know what you've done, right? Dee's going to want kids of her own soon enough. So don't be surprised when the family starts growing." I paused, smiling. "We're heading off tomorrow for a little honeymoon, but I'll be back in a couple of weeks with the girls. I'll fill you in then." I rested my hand on her headstone. "See you soon, love." 10 minutes later, I stood at the altar, this time as the groom, not the best man. I was surprised to see my whole family in the crowd, but I had a feeling Catherine had something to do with that. She has a way of convincing people. But what really caught my eye? 8 of my crew, dressed in matching suits, sitting at the aisle ends of the pews. That wasn't like them. I could tell something was up. As soon as the ceremony ended, they slipped out before Dee and I even started down the aisle. When we stepped outside, there they were, lined up in 2 neat rows, holding long-handled shovels like they were on parade. On someone's signal, they raised the shovels to form an archway for us to walk under. "You lot are something else," I muttered, grinning as we posed for photos beneath the shovels. "We're not finished yet, Raj," one of them whispered with a sly smile. After the pictures, Dee suddenly paused as we approached the limo. "Hold on a minute, Roger, I need to do something." I watched as she walked over to Shirley's grave, laying her bouquet beside the one I'd placed earlier. She stood there quietly for a few moments, speaking softly. I couldn't hear the words, but I knew it was something private between her and Shirley. Then she waved to the girls, who ran over and placed their little bouquets on their mom's grave, too. That's when it clicked. Those were the same bouquets from Estelle's wedding. I should have realized it sooner. When Dee returned, we made our way toward the limo, only to see it pulling away. In its place, my old Bedford van. Last I'd seen it, the guys were hauling it off for scrap. I thought it was long gone, but here it was, spotless and freshly painted, decked out with ribbons. A chauffeur, fully suited, sat behind the wheel. The guys slid open the side door to reveal a cozy little setup inside, complete with a sofa for Dee and me. "It's a convertible, boss," one of them whispered. "Pull the lever, and it folds out into a bed." Everyone was laughing as Dee and I climbed in. The door stayed open for the short ride to the hotel for our reception. That night, we spent our first night together as husband and wife. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of Dee quietly sobbing. "What's wrong, love?" I mumbled, rolling over to face her. "Nothing," she whispered, wiping her eyes. "I'm just so happy. But I'm mad at myself, too, for how I treated you back then. I thought you'd wait forever." "Well, we've got forever now," I whispered, pulling her close. "So stop worrying about the past." I kissed her softly, and we never spoke of it again. The girls started calling Dee Mother almost right away. They never called her Mommy. That was Shirley's name, and no one tried to replace that. I often overheard Dee asking them, "How would Mommy do this?" and following Shirley's lead. Time passed, and life was good. One evening we were watching a movie when the phone rang. Our oldest jumped up to answer while I paused the film. "Who is it?" I called out. "Mother, it's for you," she replied, holding out the phone. "Someone named Portia." Dee's eyes flickered with surprise, but she took the phone without hesitation. She switched it to speaker and set it down on the coffee table, her expression unreadable. "Hi, Tish. How are you?" Dee asked, her tone cool but casual. "Oh, Dee, it's so good to hear your voice," Portia gushed from the other end, her voice trembling. "I'm a mess. I caught George cheating, and I'm divorcing him. I really need to talk. Let's meet up like old times?" Dee didn't miss a beat. "Well, I suppose we could meet for lunch," she replied, rifling through her bag. "Let me check my calendar." I shot her a look from across the room, my eyebrows raised. "Is she seriously going to meet Tish?" Dee caught my expression and smirked, a spark of mischief in her eyes. "What's today's date?" Dee asked, still flipping through her planner. "August 3rd, Portia answered, her voice hopeful. "How about August 6th, 2026? Dee said, deadpan. There was a pause on the other end. 2026? Dee, that's 20 years from now. You're joking, right? Nope, Dee said smoothly. By then our 3 kids should be out of the house, and I might have time for lunch. 3 kids? Portia repeated, confused. I thought Roger only had 2. Dee's smile widened as she glanced over at me. No, Roger and I have 2 and a bit, and there's a chance it might be 2 and 2 bits. You know, twins run in my family. There was a stunned silence before Dee added, Goodbye, Tish. Maybe call me in 20 years, if we haven't changed our number by then. She hung up and leaned back with a grin. Our girls caught on faster than I did and burst into laughter. Twins? I finally asked, raising an eyebrow. Well, that's what the doctor thinks, Dee said, smiling. But it's still early. I was hoping to know for sure before telling you and the girls.